breaking down the walls. Over the next month, Jason began to truly see Anna in a way he never had before. He watched her during board meetings as she commanded the room with intelligence and grace. He noticed how her team respected her, how they listened intently to every word she spoke, how they would go to the ends of the earth to accomplish her vision. He saw her laugh with her executives, and he realized that beneath the armor of power and success, there was still that kind-hearted girl he had known in college. He started finding excuses to interact with her during the workday. He would ask legitimate business questions just to hear her voice. He would arrive at meetings early, hoping to catch her alone. He began to understand that her coldness toward him was not cruelty, it was self-protection. She had built walls as strong as steel around her heart, and he had put the first brick in that wall. One day, while reviewing quarterly reports, Anna discovered a critical error in a merger proposal. She called Jason into her office, and when he arrived, she was flustered, something he had never seen before. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. "Jason, I need your expertise on this," she said, pushing the document across her desk. "There is something that does not add up, and I value your input on corporate structure despite everything." He was shocked that she was asking for his help, that she saw value in him for something beyond his role as an employee. He spent hours with her, going through spreadsheets and financial projections, and slowly, something shifted between them. The tension that had been crackling with anger and hurt began to transform into something else, something more complicated. As they worked late into the night, Anna found herself opening up slightly. She talked about the loneliness of building an empire, how she had sacrificed relationships and friendships and normalcy to achieve her goals. She spoke about nights when she questioned whether it was all worth it, whether the money and power could ever fill the void left by human connection. Jason listened, and for the first time in their adult lives, he truly heard her. He understood that her success had not come easily, that it had cost her pieces of herself that money could not restore. He found himself wanting to rebuild what he had torn down that day in the quad. "I want to tell you something," he said softly as dawn broke outside the office windows. "I have replayed that day 1,000 times in my head, wishing I could take back every cruel word. If I could go back, I would choose you every single time, Anna. I was so focused on climbing the ladder that I did not realize the most extraordinary person was right in front of me." Anna looked at him with eyes that glistened with unshed tears, and for a moment the armor cracked. "You cannot rewrite the past, Jason," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But maybe we can figure out what happens next." He reached across the desk and took her hand, and she did not pull away. Part 5. Love in the Aftermath. 3 months later, Anna sat in her penthouse office, overlooking the Chicago skyline, her hands trembling as she made a decision that would change everything. She had spent the last several weeks carefully examining her feelings for Jason, watching him transform from the arrogant boy she had known in college into a genuine and thoughtful man. He had proven through consistent action and vulnerability that he had truly changed. The company was thriving under her leadership, and Jason had become an invaluable part of her vision. They worked seamlessly together, and somewhere along the way, the line between business and personal had become beautifully blurred. They had shared stolen kisses in empty conference rooms and lingering touches during meetings that made it impossible to deny what was happening between them. But Anna was terrified. She had spent 7 years building walls, not just around her heart, but around her entire life. She had made Jason read her enemy, her motivation, her reason for becoming unstoppable. Now he was asking her to forgive him and, more than that, to trust him with her heart again. She decided to invite him to a private dinner at her penthouse that evening. She wanted a space where they were not boss and employee, where the complicated history between them could be addressed openly and honestly. When Jason arrived, she had prepared everything herself, a rare luxury given her busy schedule. The table was set with candles and her favorite flowers, and for the first time in years, she felt vulnerable. Jason arrived in a navy suit, his hair perfectly styled, but his expression nervous.
I was not expecting this, he said, looking around the intimate setting. I have been thinking about what you said 3 months ago, she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, about how you would choose me if you could go back. I have also been thinking about who I became because you rejected me, and I realized that rejection led me here, to independence, to power, to myself. She paused, taking a breath. I have built walls so high, Jason, that I was not sure anyone could ever get inside. But somewhere in these last few months, you have been chipping away at them, and I'm terrified. Because I still remember the pain you caused me, but I also see the man you have become. Jason stood up from his chair and moved around the table to her side, kneeling down to meet her eyes. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, Anna, but I'm asking for your trust. I'm asking for the chance to love you the way I should have from the beginning. I'm asking for us. Anna pulled him close and kissed him, and it felt like coming home and like taking a risk all at once. It felt like healing and like choosing love over revenge and like finally letting go of the past. Months later, they stood together in front of the entire company, announcing not just a business merger, but a personal one. Jason had stepped down from his position, and they had restructured the company so they could build something together rather than fighting over power. Anna still owned the company, but Jason was no longer beneath her. He was beside her, as an equal, as a partner, as her person. Their love story began with rejection and pain, but it had transformed into something stronger, something built on genuine understanding and growth. They had both become extraordinary, but together they were unstoppable. Anna had proven she didn't need Jason to be successful, but she realized that success meant nothing if she had to experience it alone. And Jason finally understood that the most important thing was not climbing the ladder, but climbing it with someone you truly love. Their story became legendary in the business world. The billionaire and the man she once rejected, the woman who turned heartbreak into empire, and the man who learned that real power comes from admitting you were wrong and fighting for redemption. Their love was not a fairy tale. It was something far more valuable. It was real.
The choice. 3 weeks later, Sophia sat in a small apartment in Queens, far from the penthouse, far from Ethan, far from the life she had constructed with such meticulous care. The FBI had frozen her accounts, seized her possessions, and was building a case against her for fraud and conspiracy. She had become the very thing she had always feared: invisible, powerless, worthless. But it was the photograph that changed everything. It arrived without explanation or postage, just slipped under her door. A photo of herself from 6 months ago at a charity gala, looking radiant and confident. But someone had written on the back in Claire's handwriting, "Do you want to know who you really are, or do you want to spend the rest of your life hating who you pretend to be?" Sophia turned the photo over and over, studying her own face, trying to understand what Claire was asking. She thought about her childhood, about why she had become someone so willing to manipulate and destroy. She thought about the moment she first met Ethan, when something in her had recognized a kindred spirit, someone as broken as she was, just hidden under better clothes. That night, Sophia made a decision. She called the FBI and asked to speak with Special Agent Webb. When he arrived, she told him everything. Every operation she had been part of, every crime she had witnessed, every organization she had worked for, every terrible thing she had done in service of a life that was never even real. But she also told him something else. She told him that Claire Lawson was the real victim in all of this, that Ethan, despite his crimes, still loved Claire in the only way he knew how, and that Sophia herself was willing to testify against the men who had sent her to destroy Ethan's life in the first place. As she made her confession, something shifted inside her, like a locked door opening for the first time. She was terrified, yes, but also strangely free. Finally, she was being honest. Finally, she was telling the truth. Finally, she was choosing to be someone other than what her circumstances had made her. The last thing Agent Webb told her before he left was that Claire had known this moment would come. She had orchestrated not just revenge, but redemption. She had wanted Sophia to see herself not as a villain, but as a victim of her own choices, someone who still had the power to choose differently. For the first time in years, Sophia Bennett cried, and the tears felt like washing away a lifetime of pretense. Part 5. The Reckoning. 6 months later, Sophia testified in federal court against the organization that had employed her, against Ethan, against everyone she had ever conspired with to hurt. Her testimony was devastating and complete, and by the end of the trial, 17 people had been convicted of various crimes, ranging from fraud to attempted murder. Ethan received a reduced sentence for his cooperation with authorities. He would serve 2 years and then emerge into a life fundamentally transformed by consequences and accountability. On the day he was sentenced, he looked across the courtroom and made eye contact with both Sophia and Claire, who sat separately in the gallery, watching history rewrite itself. Claire Lawson had become something of a celebrity. The woman who had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to expose corruption and bring her own husband to justice, while never crossing the line into actual illegality. She had orchestrated everything through legal means, through documentation, through patience. She had won, not through destruction, but through truth. After the trial, Claire approached Sophia outside the courthouse. Sophia expected anger, expected condemnation, expected to be dismissed. But instead, Claire looked at her with an expression of profound sadness and something almost like compassion. "I did not do this to hurt you," she said softly. "I did this because I believed you were capable of being more than what you were. If I had not believed that, I never would have wasted my time orchestrating your awakening." Sophia did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She simply nodded and watched as Claire turned and walked away, her head held high, her life reclaimed, her power restored. In the years that followed, Sophia rebuilt herself completely. She spent time in prison, where she began to genuinely understand the impact of her actions. She entered therapy and began the long, difficult work of understanding why she had become someone so willing to hurt others. She studied and eventually earned her law degree with a focus on victims' advocacy. One day, while working at a nonprofit helping women escape exploitation, she received a letter. It was from Ethan. He had been released from prison and was living quietly abroad. He wrote that he had spent his time inside, finally becoming the man Claire had believed he could be. He wrote that he had read about her work helping vulnerable women and that he wanted her to know he was proud of her. He wrote that Claire had started a foundation to help people like Sophia, people who had been used as weapons by powerful organizations. He wrote that if Sophia ever wanted to connect with Claire, to apologize, to understand, to heal, that Claire had expressed openness to that possibility. Sophia held the letter for a long time. Then, she sat down and began to write a response, not to Ethan, but to Claire. An apology that was genuine and deep. A recognition of the truth that Claire had tried to teach her. A willingness to accept forgiveness if Claire was willing to give it. Sometimes Sophia thought about the night she stood on that penthouse balcony, thinking she had won, thinking she was a queen. But she understood now that Claire had been the real victor all along, not because she had destroyed Sophia, but because she had saved her. She had forced her to see the truth about herself, and in doing so, had given Sophia the greatest gift of all, the chance to choose who she wanted to become. And in the end, Sophia Bennett became not the villain in the story, but the redemption arc. The woman who learned that real love, real power, real victory came not from taking from others, but from becoming truthfully and courageously yourself.